This picture was labeled Chadbourn's First Fair, 1895. This float paraded on Washington Avenue. To celebrate the 30th anniversary of strawberry culture, the first Strawberry Festival was on May the 12th, 1926. There were a tour of farms, and the auction, and a dance that night at Lake Waccamaw, exhibits in the warehouse, and speeches including one by the governor of South Carolina. The Strawberry Festival is an annual event. It is the oldest agricultural festival in North Carolina. Farmers diversified to some degree. There were dairy farmers. Grapes and blackberries were a marketable crop. At one time, honey was promoted and marketed in the Chadbourn area. This is an early reaper, used around the turn of the century. This machine cut and tied the grain in bundles. It was thrashed later and used as feed for animals. We think this is Carl Miller operating the machine. Some of the colonists brought horses, planning to use them for clearing and cultivating the land. They found oxen more practical. Hardy Yates once challenged a train engineer to a race from Chadbourn to Grice, a distance of 2 miles. Hardy riding an ox, the engineer driving the train. That day, Hardy won. This is a goat-drawn cart, used most often by children. Obviously, this is a posed picture. The clothes are interesting, as are the latest hairdos. Mr. Clark delivered the mail along Broadway. His delivery cart is shown in front of the Marshall House on Broadway. It is not known whether his post office was in Grice or Chadbourn. This is the first house built by the Wilkes family after they arrived in Chadbourn. Members of the colony, they arrived in 1897, and for some years operated the Wilkes Hotel on South Brown Street. This house stood on the corner of Wilkes Street and the Grice Road. Allen Ford moved it a short distance west when he built his home. The house still stands on the Grice Road. Martin Francis Linhart, a Sunny South colonist, built this house in 1901 on 2nd Avenue. Mr. Linhart moved to town from his Washington Avenue farm. His son Charles had recently married and assumed the farming operation. After moving to town, he dealt in real estate. Dr. Jack Kuntz, a pharmacist, lived in this house for many years. It is presently the home of Ms. Sue Bunch. This is the Chadbourn Methodist Church at the corner of East 2nd Avenue and Howard Streets. This building was built about 1901. The groundbreaking for the present building was in 1950. This day, Bethany Ann Blake Strickland must have gone to Chadbourn shopping. She lived less than a mile from the center of town. This picture is made beside J.R. Blake's store. Many knew this lady as Aunt Thane. This is our earliest view of Brown Street south of the railroad. We think this is a 1903 view. This was a postcard postmarked 1903. On the left is Thigpen's General Store. The building across the street on the right is believed to be the Wilkes Hotel. A few years later, the Wilkes used the Thigpen store building as part of their hotel and operated establishments on both sides of the street. This is the former Wilkes Hotel. In 1980, it is the residence of Ms. C.D. Carr. It is located on the corner of South Brown Street and the Grice Road. This picture was made about 1905. This is Brown Street looking south. Starting on the left is Hayes Jewelry Store. Then Dr. W. F. Smith's office. And then the Bank of Chadbourn. The Bank of Chadbourn was established in 1904. It failed in 1930. It was described as the bank that grit made. Cashier until 1922 was D.C. Clark. C.L. Tate succeeded him. Continuing on the left, across the tracks, is Thigpen's General Store. The large building on the right is J.R. Blake's General Store. A boxcar partially obscures the Wilkes Hotel across the tracks on the right. This is another view of Brown Street about 1907 looking north. The building on the right in the foreground is the Bank of Chadbourn. J.R. Blake's General Store is on the left. We call this the Jolly Building. It was once Bailey's Drug Store. Dr. W. F. Yates's first dental office was located on the left front of the second floor. It was also once a cafe. And last, it was the residence of the Jolly family. It was on the West Railroad Avenue and was demolished in 1979. This is Bailey's Drug Store about 1904. It was in the Jolly Building. Earl Bailey was the owner. Other drug stores in Chadbourn in the early years were Thompson's Drug Store, Shelton's Drug Store, Brown's Drug Store, and Kuntz's Drug Store. The first drug store was established in 1896 and was operated by Dr. N.A. Thompson. Dr. McKinnon was Chadbourn's first physician. He died in 1895. In 1904, Dr. Withers, Dr. Smith, and Dr. Blake practiced medicine in Chadbourn. Dr. J.W. Stanley was the first dentist, followed by Dr. J.B. Barden in 1911, and Dr. W. F. Yates in 1912. Chadbourn people worked and played. On July the 16th, 1903, Boardman played Chadbourn in a baseball game. The man on the right, number 6, is George Bonner. In 1904, this dressed-up crowd have just enjoyed a July the 4th picnic and fish fry at Page's Mill Pond. The Young Matrons Club, which was later the Maids and Matrons Club, organized in 1904, federated with the North Carolina Federation Woman's Club in 1906. It is the oldest federated woman's club in the county. Two other social or civic clubs, the Bell Letter Society, organized in 1897, and the Chadbourn Study Club, organized in 1901, predate this club. Minutes of these clubs are in the Columbus County Library. In 1933, the Maids and Matrons organized the Chadbourn Sorority Club for the younger women of the town. This club is also a North Carolina Federated Women's Club. Ms. J. A. Brown and Ms. J. H. Land served in district and state offices for the North Carolina Federated Women's Clubs. Maids and Matrons brought cultural programs to Chadbourn. For several years, they sponsored Professor Frederick Koch from the University at Chapel Hill with his famous readings. Some of the other fraternal and civic organizations in Chadbourn over the years are the Sewing Circle, Memorial Association, the Masons, the Eastern Star, the Rainbow Girls, the Junior Order, the Woodmen of the World, the Boy Scouts of America, the American Legion and Auxiliary, the Rotary, the Civitans, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Alliance, the Business and Professional Women and Garden Clubs. This picture was labeled the first windmill in Columbus County. Ms. Estelle Baldwin said it stood on the lot back of Dr. W. F. Smith's residence at the corner of Oak and First Avenue. His first house was a frame house which burned, and the present brick residence was built on the same lot. The first schoolhouse north of the railroad was located at 2nd Avenue and Howard Street. Ms. Moores in her history says it was built in 1898, consisted of 2 rooms and an attic, and accommodated about 100 students. As enrollment increased, it was necessary to use the attic as a classroom. Reverend A. H. Harnley taught the upper grades. Ms. Lottie Leonhardt, who was later Ms. Moses Lowe, taught the grammar grades. Miss Estelle Newman and Ms. Emma Hickey were teachers in this school. After a larger school was built, about 1904, this building was used for meetings of the Sewing Circle, the Church Ladies, and sometimes for band practice for the Silver Cornet Band. This house was once owned by Dr. J. F. Blake. Today it is the residence of Miss Estelle Crutchfield. This is the Washington Avenue School of the sunny South Colony as it looked about 1902. Washington Avenue was one of the roads of the sunny South Colony. Today it is the Peacock Road. This is a picture of some Washington Avenue students. The building today is used as a pack house and stands in the yard of Bruce Turner. Broadway was one of the roads in the sunny South Colony.